Hi, this is Sarah from Hamilton. I'm a seminarian at St. Vladimir Seminary, and I'm here with Father Michael Nasser, who is, as of this semester, the new spiritual director at the seminary. So thanks so much for coming on, and we're looking forward to speaking with you. So could you just tell us a little bit about your history with St. Vlad's? How long have you been interacting with this institution?
Well, seminary was back in the dark ages of the early 1990s. But the seminary played a important part in my journey to ministry. It's actually the place that I was petrified of when I was just starting to think about life in ministry and in the priesthood in particular. So I had to sort of get over that hurdle of coming here to this place. And once I came to visit, I came during college. I was all in. I was gonna quit going to the college I was at and come to the collegiate program here. At the time, you could actually finish college here. But no, I held off and I didn't actually graduate from here. I did 2 years here and then a year at Holy Cross, and I finished up my MDiv up there.
Okay.
But loved my years here and had great experiences.
Were you married or were you a single seminarian at the time?
No, I was single, dating my wife at the time, but not married yet.
Any big impressions on shifts between then and now?
It's a much different place in lots of ways. I'm still finding parts of the campus that didn't exist when I was here. It was all just forest area that you couldn't even get to.
Yeah.
Um, so no, much bigger, much more complex. It's we had some we would call them luminaries that were here. My professors were Father Hopko, Father Meyendorf, Professor Kessage, names that are sort of revered names now. Uh, so to not have them here is was a little strange. I've adjusted to now, of course, but um, so impressed with the faculty we have. So impressed with the leadership of Dr. Dodori and the staff. In many ways, the atmosphere on campus is better. It's lighter. There's a bit more joy in the air. So it's almost the best of what it was, and now it's even better. And so I'm really enjoying my time here so far.
Thank God. So how how has your journey developed then between being here as a seminarian for a couple years to coming back here as spiritual director? Sketch out how you ended up back here.
Well, I think all the stages you want of where I've served, I've had a very varied ministry. Parishes, I was a camp director, I was a mission priest in Mexico for 3 years, all of which I feel so blessed of all the opportunities that I've had. Um, but the opportunity came back here was really not in my mind in any formal way, although I thought even early on in my ministry, at some point, I would love to share what I was learning along the way with the next generation of leaders in the church. Hadn't really thought about how that would work, except maybe in retirement, volunteering, coming. I told the previous dean of the school that someday, having been a parish priest at the time for about 30 years, I said, I want to come back and teach a class. And the name of the class is What It's Really Like to Be a Priest. And we laughed about it at the time. And then there's been a change in administration, and when they were looking for a new director of spiritual formation, my name came up through some common colleagues that I share with some of the staff here, and they approached me, and I was at first I just thought it was a joke. I literally laughed
Yeah.
the first phone call. Um, and then that was followed by a lot of intimidation of what it would mean to come back and literally helped to work for the formation of the seminarians and their future ministry. But the more I thought about it, the more excited I got about the possibilities of sharing what God has taught me through the many different ways that I've served, many different locations and situations. And now that I'm here, I'm even more convinced that I think this is where God wants us to be, and just been loving my time talking with the seminarians.
I can say that we got to campus around the same time, but Already within the first couple days, I think I heard your name like five, six times. You're a living legend
Yeah,
among
yeah.
the folks here, and I'm sure, God willing, that will only increase during your time. Not to tempt you, or maybe that's exactly the challenge that God is sending you.
Well, you know what? God sends us opportunities in all kinds of ways.
So now you have a family. Are they settling in well?
Adult children. One is here with us, our youngest, just graduated college back in May. Our two oldest are both in California, pursuing different careers, and they're both happy there. Our oldest just came to visit. So it's my wife and our youngest with us here. And yeah, I think we're all, every day we just feel a little more settled here. Moving is not my favorite thing to do in the world. Um, God bless my wife and our daughter for doing literally all the unpacking while I've been working up here on the hill a little bit. But no, we're really loving being back. I had forgotten what a great area this was. You know, when I was here in my mid 20s, you don't think about walking the neighborhood and seeing the pretty gardens, but you get my age and those things mean something, and
Yeah.
how quiet it is and the beautiful trails there are nearby. So we really just love being back. I haven't been to the city yet. I've been here, what, 6 weeks? So at some point I'll hop the train and in a half hour be in Midtown Manhattan, but hasn't happened yet.
I mean, it is really beautiful here. That's one of the impressions that we've gotten as well since coming here. You know, when we told people we're moving to Yonkers, they're like, "Oh, Yonkers."
Right.
Actually, we like the area, even apart from the campus, but the campus in particular is just it's a special place.
Yeah.
Um, so now I want to kind of dive in a little more into your mind, into your vision. You've alluded to already. This is it's a heavy task, right? To direct spiritual formation for the people who are going to be spiritually forming others. So you're going to be a lot of people's, say, spiritual grandfather. So how do you approach that? What's your vision for what you want to accomplish here?
Look back at my own life and I realize how many ways God was forming me through other people. Some of them knew they were doing that and did it intentionally. Some didn't, but were still very beneficial to me. And just how many situations I was in, and I would say even especially the difficult ones. You know, when you go through a difficult time, the difficulty can be just all you can see sometimes. It just fills your vision. And at the time, it was hard to see those as good experiences. But now looking back, I look back at all of my experiences and especially the really tough ones, and I can recognize how valuable those were in my formation, my development, in my growth, both as just a Christian, as a human being, but as a priest. So as I'm meeting with the students right now, basically I'm just meeting with everybody one on one. We're just getting to know each other. But one of the things I'm sharing with them is that one thing I want to provide is an environment and a relationship where the students can process their time here and specifically their challenges with trying to find ways to grow from them. You know, life in seminary isn't easy. For married students, they're uprooting their families, they're bringing them here. Some have kids, and you're bringing kids along. It's moves are always difficult for families. This is difficult in the sense that they're not moving into their own house somewhere. A lot of them have, moved out of houses. Now they're living in little apartments, and all kinds of ways it's difficult. The life of a seminarian is very full in terms of time commitment. So the seminarians are torn between their schoolwork, their parish assignments, their other responsibilities for, being a student and family life. And then you got single students who they have their own struggles as they're going through this phase of life. Um, just different struggle, but everybody has hard times here. In the past, and even in my own experience here, those hard times were just seen by so many of us as things to get through and at best survive. But as I look back at my life in ministry, so many of those challenging times were the opportunities that I needed to grow. I didn't want those things to happen at the time. It's the last thing I wanted is to go through those difficult times. But as I went through them, and then reflected later on them. Now I can look back and go, that was crucial to my growth. So one of the things I'm hoping to do is help the students. And I told them, I said, come in, tell me your tale of woe. I will be compassionate. I'm not gonna just tell you, suck it up. I'm gonna, because there are difficult, and we should acknowledge that. At the same time, if we just get through it, we're missing big opportunities. So one thing I hope to do is help them process that and realize that God, even in those really difficult times, is using those difficulties to form them in really important ways that they're going to benefit from later on when they're out doing ministry.
A little more to the way in which you feel you yourself were spiritually formed at seminary. And what specific things, if you want to get specific,
Yeah.
kind of cut into you in a way that leaves that, that cross-shaped mark that we're looking for.
Yeah. Well, when I was here, there was no spiritual formation program. And as I explained to the students in orientation this year, the whole program here then and now is spiritual formation. I'm not in charge of the seminary, even though the seminary's job is spiritual formation of the students. Um, I am a part of that, and it's not the part that relates to the running of the chapel and the liturgical life, as much as I serve there, and that's a part of what I do here. Father Alexander, he's the rector of the chapel. That's really his job, in addition to the things that he does. I don't do the work of a professor, at least not at this point, and will always, if I teach, it'll be the minor part of my time here. As I see it, and as I've talked with the dean, Dr. Dory, and others, I really want to work on bringing all the rest of that experience, the community life, the challenges of operating in a tough schedule, the difficulties as students start to encounter real people in their ministry, whether it's through a parish assignment or through their CPE program. Maybe they're working in an emergency room in a big city hospital, or they're at a nursing home dealing with real people and then learning how to process that. It's all of those other things that are not really part of any set program that I want to help the students process. And specifically, I love the way you say that, to find that cross-shaped mark. Those are ways that we are called to serve and live out a crucified Christian life, which shouldn't be optional, isn't optional. Christ said, if you want to follow me, you deny yourself, you take up your cross. He didn't say one of the ways to follow him. That is the way. And if we're not learning to do that, and I would say especially in the seminary, if students are coming here and they're being shown crosses, or there are crosses they come across and all they want to do is get around them or just survive them, get through them, get past them, then they're not going to be formed in those situations, in those encounters with those challenges, with those crosses, and they'll miss that opportunity. I tell students, that I meet with them, I said, I don't give you bad news, but life isn't easier once you're done. It really isn't. It'll be easier in the sense that if you learn how to handle the difficulties and use them for your spiritual growth, or more properly, let God use them. Don't close him out of that struggle. Then those things become the ways that we all grow personally. And I think what's unique to a seminary is we're not growing just for ourselves. I think we should all be growing as Christians. But the people at the seminary, the students, are here specifically so they can go out and minister to others who all need to be taught how to encounter the crosses in their life. So how does a priest or somebody serving any function in the church as a leader of ministry, how do they teach somebody else how to bear their cross and grow spiritually if they haven't themselves done it? And so that's what I see as really my job, is trying to help everyone process well those challenges and practice the ways that they're going to have to continue bearing the crosses, because once we get out of here, there are just different crosses in a life of ministry.
So you spent, what was it, 10 years at your last parish, I believe,
Correct.
maybe a little more than 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Yeah. Could you, how does the pastoral ministry that you performed there relate to what you're doing here? And what do you take from that and bring here to the seminarians and their families?
I think in some ways two distinct things. One, is I was engaged in pastoral care there in my previous assignments, but we're talking specifically there. For those 10 years, I was guiding and shepherding souls and guiding people and helping them encounter Christ in meaningful ways. That's continuing. People here are people. They have very similar struggles as parishioners do, family struggles, personal struggles, spiritual, emotional. Um, so I'm continuing that pastoral care, only in a sense the parishioners I have now are seminarians and their families. The second part of that is I'm doing it not just for them, end of story. I know that they're all going to be going out and serving, whether as priests or other leaders in the church. So I'm doing it. I'm trying to work with them in such a way that they benefit from it and that they know how to apply that learning, that growth, when they're on the other side, when they are being looked at as people who are there to form and lead and guide other people. So it's really both together. And I thank God again for all my experiences that I think um, are a lot of things that people are going to find helpful to hear. I'm not going to bore them with all my stories, but I think there are things that I've learned and gained that I can share that give people maybe a little bit of a head start in their ministry. They go out.
One of the things that is unique maybe about the academic environment here as opposed to if you're just going to college or grad school, at least for a lot of the seminarians, is that this is a whole family experience, right? You are living in very close quarters. A lot of families have given up quite a lot to come here and be part of this community. And I know you have made yourself available not only to the seminarians but also to um, their families. So what is what should people keep in mind when it comes to that part of being at seminary? And what's your wisdom to offer to the families of the seminarians here?
Again, part of it is that this is not all that dissimilar from parish life. It's dissimilar in some similar ways. Like you said, you're all kind of crammed in apartments on top of each other, literally.
Yeah.
When kids throw a temper tantrum upstairs, you're hearing it downstairs. Um, but other than that, the time pressures, the demands are not all that different from parish life. And one of the benefits that all the seminarians have while they're here is not just learning from people the school is offering them as resources, myself, the professors, the other people on the faculty and staff, but you all can process that together. That's one of the advantages that I think seminary has. Again, sometimes there are people who or for whom those relationships are just it's a bother. There's all these people around, and I used to live on my own. It was a lot easier, especially some of the single students who really ran their own lives. They were living in their own, apartments or homes, whatever. Now they come here and sort of living an undergraduate life again.
Yeah.
Some of them had, very successful careers for a decade or more, and now they're back in a dorm.
Yeah.
Um, but learning how to deal with those situations, and I think, for these going back to the families, um, people are not going to serve their ministry in a vacuum. If you're married, your wife and kids are coming along for the ride, and learning how to balance that, learning what you share and what you don't share, learning how you share what you're going to share, all those things that's new to all of you. And it's good to have this time to sort of practice good habits. You all, the seminarians, they learn from each other what works and what doesn't, because sometimes when something doesn't work and one wife is complaining to the other wife who tells her husband, you could all learn a little vicariously, which is hard, but a great benefit. You see each other's success, and you go, "Oh, I got to do what that guy does." You see somebody else who doesn't do it. Oh, I better learn and before I make that the same mistake. So I think it's another great benefit you have, but it is another layer of challenge to go through this as a family. It is a particularly challenging thing.
So the church right now, I think, is relatively well known. Church right now has a shortage of clergy. Um, a lot of people are talking about alternative options beyond traditional seminary. Do you have anything to say on that? What uniquely do you think people can derive from doing an in-person um, experience like this, if they're able to?
Yeah. My personal opinion is the demands for clergy are so great. The response of the church is probably going to be in all of the above. And I just know that from my ministry. I'm leaving a ministry where we had a deacon who was volunteer deacon. He was an insurance agent, adjuster, and when it came time to hire a youth director, he was the best candidate. So now he's the full-time youth director in the parish. Not a seminary education. He had a correspondence program, the St. Stephen's program, the Antiochian Archdiocese, which was a great program, really, for what it is. And now he's serving full-time in the church. The associate pastor of the church I came from was a career-long attorney who was a deacon for 20 years. And when I needed pastoral help, as I needed another priest and there was no one available, we petitioned the archdiocese, and now he is the associate pastor. Not full time because he's retired. He deserves to have some retirement. But all of those different paths, I think, are going to be useful. I still think, and I'm not saying this just as a member of the staff here, the seminary experience, especially today in this moment we're in the church, is absolutely vital that some people get this experience. Just the sheer amount of time that people have in this environment. It's an environment designed to help form future leaders of the church, clergy and lay leaders, but particularly clergy. The fact that you're not just doing assignments, sending them in, or attending a one-week seminar and doing the rest of the reading on your own. The conversations that happen over meals, on walks to the chapel and back, the fact that you can attend services typically twice a day, so many aspects of this. The fact that you can hear a lecture and then go see your professor, meet him for coffee for an hour to talk about a particular aspect. All those things I think are advantages that make the seminary experience important. And I think today, for a couple of reasons. One, I think the church today is encountering other bodies, other religious bodies and non-religious populations in ways that are very atypical from the past. We've always lived in the world, but the world was never as um, varied and multicultural, and the pluralism in religious experience and ethnicity and background and political ideology, all that. It's a very diverse population that has as its quality interaction. So to take somebody who doesn't have the chance to have all the time that a seminarian gets and expect them to perform well in lots of different situations with different people, it's a high bar. It's hard even to ask somebody who is a seminary graduate, but I think it provides opportunities that just you don't get when you don't get that much time. I also think this is a particular time where clergy, in particular, are being asked to do so many things. They're all things that clergy have done in the past. Clergy have always served services. They've always administered sacraments. They've always visited the sick. They've always blessed homes. They've always give counsel to people who needed it. But the degree to which they're asked to do all of that and manage a parish and be a good speaker and be a good neighbor to people of other religions and other pastors. So many dimensions of pastoral life. And not just because of the shortage, but because of what is standard in the church today, one priest for 200, 400, 1,000 people or more. That's just become standard in our situation. That's not standard. That is our situation. And so, for those reasons, I think the seminary education is just a wonderful blessing for anybody who can make the opportunity to come and take it.
So that's a good seg to the next family of things I want to get your thoughts on, which is okay, the church has this shortage. There's a lot of people who are coming into the church now. Since really everyone seems to say since COVID, we've had this wave. And that means there's a lot of people out there who are passionate about their faith and to whom the thought has occurred, hey, maybe I should consider becoming a priest. What is a good sign that you should consider that?
It's such a hard thing because the call to ministry really is a mystery, no less mysterious than the other sacraments. We look at the Eucharist as a mystery, and we know that we don't define, how bread and wine become the very body and blood of Christ. In the same way, with the same respect, I think we should approach the mystery of men being called to the priesthood. So it's not that we don't say anything,
Hmm.
but we have to recognize that this is not something that can be fully explained or understood. It's just something we know to be true. Um, when I have heard of a young man who either his own sense of a call or my perception of a potential call, one of the things that I've suggested they do is develop a relationship with the altar of their church, which I know sounds like a crazy thing. How do you develop a relationship with what some people consider a piece of furniture?
Yeah.
That piece of furniture to some is the meeting place of heaven and earth. It's where the gifts are offered from the people through the clergy, set up to be offered up to God in the Eucharist. It's the source of so much of our life in the church, the sacraments, the liturgical life. And then we ask typically a young man to go and stand at that altar, as Bishop John of the Antiochian Archdiocese says so beautifully. A priest stands before God on behalf of the people, and he stands before the people on behalf of God. So when a young man starts to sense that calling, that's one thing I do is say, come and just be an altar server, see what developments happen and see what understandings start to grow. Because principally, that's what a priest does. This is the you might call it the paradox of the priesthood. The most central thing the priest does is serving at that altar. That defines him in so many ways as a priest. And yet, if we just go by time spent, it's probably the place he spends the least amount of time. Even priests that serve daily services, the majority of their day is not served at the altar, but it does define everything else they do. So I think that's one way is just to help them develop the potential for a relationship with that very sacred place. And because it's a mystery, I think all we can do is just try to remove barriers that can be removed. For me, it was the fear of if that first domino fell, if I came to the seminary and if I wasn't blocked through that, then maybe everything else is going to come and maybe I'm not ready for all that. So walking slowly with somebody who's trying to discern their call, reminding them at every step that you're not going to walk alone. You walk with Christ, you walk with your priest and others that are going to walk with you. You're not going to walk this path alone. Other barriers I think we really need to work harder at is, fears of financial stability. I don't think, I mean, there are some people who are called to poverty, especially monastics, and for them, poverty is not a barrier. But for a married man or a man who wants to be married, it's not wrong to want to financially support your family. And so I think there's lots that we could do to remove the barriers and I think we've come a long way to supporting clergy financially. I think we have work to do still. But then I think we have to communicate that. When I talk to young men and I say, how have you thought about priesthood? Well, I would, but I want to take care of my family and I don't want to put them through living life of poverty. Well, a lot of them don't know that that's not necessarily the case, and it rarely is. So removing those barriers that I think we can remove, and there are others.
When do you think a person should begin to seriously consider this? And I guess related to the previous question, how does a person distinguish if they're concerned about, oh, maybe I'm just being spiritually delusional. How could I be a priest? How could I stand at that altar? I'm just going to put this away because this is from the devil. How do you manage all of those thoughts?
The main thing is you don't do it yourself. Um, you process it with a father confessor that hopefully you have a good relationship with and that you can dialogue with. I tell the students here, your job was to discern as best you can that God intended for you to come and get the experience of being at the seminary, and your job is to decide how much you're open to. Are you willing to be ordained? First as a deacon and then later as a priest. Are you willing? Other than that, I really think that we, or those that are candidates, they really shouldn't play much more of a role. Their job is to be available, to be perceptive, to dialogue with a good mentor like a spiritual father, to take that spiritual father's advice over their own. They might say, well, I could never stand there. And if their father confessor says, well, I think you should at least pursue this next step, if they don't feel that it's wrong, that it's the wrong direction, I don't think they should let either their pride or their humility stop them. I think in their humility, they say, well, Father thinks I should do this. I'm willing to do it. I take the next step and I present myself to the bishop and let the bishop decide. Yes, you should go. No, you shouldn't. I just think it's easy to get over involved. And we might say in a worldly sense, well, you have every right to it. It's your life. Well, as a clergyman, it's not. You know, in many of our traditions, you get a new name. You are told where you're going to live. You're not typically asked. And, you know, the bishops try to accommodate. They want it's a good situation for the priest, for his family. But ultimately, you are submitting your life to service the church and specifically through the bishop. And so practicing that willingness to be obedient and to just present yourself and say, here I am, Lord. If it's your will, send me. And let God and the bishop take care of the rest.
So we have these two kind of different categories, if I can talk in that way, of seminarians, right? You have the married seminarians, you've got the single ones. Um, I want to ask you first about married ones. What should married men and their families in particular consider as they discern whether this is a path forward for them?
I don't think it's a different path. Um, but I think what a man has to do in his pursuit of being open to a call and being open to even the call to be ordained, now there's a woman at his side who has to do a similar thing. But she's not being asked to be ordained. Yes, we give a special title, Chudia or Matishka, depending on your tradition. Um, and she has a very specific role. And to some degree, it is a direct role with the parishioners, but primarily it's the wife of the priest. You know, in some instances, there is a sort of mother of the parish kind of thing. I think that can be easily overstated sometimes. Um, we were living in different times. You know, I remember as a teenager, one of our young priests, his wife, enrolled in the police academy, and that was just so controversial to our parish. A, that she was working and to be a police. I mean, these days they're different. We were used to a woman working outside the home much more. So, but I think that she has to go through a similar process and do the same thing in order to say, like, am I willing to do this? Do I feel this is where God is calling us as best as I can guess? What is my priest saying? And am I willing? And I think for both, for the candidate for ministry, the priest to be perhaps, and for his wife, um, one of the hardest things, one of the most essential things, in my opinion, is that they don't look to themselves primarily. They look primarily to Christ and say, with Christ, with you, Lord, is this the direction that I will go? I think it's one of the most important things we do in the spiritual life, not to rely on ourselves and overthink our own strengths or weaknesses. It's good to be aware of those things, but to turn that attention and see what are Christ's strengths for me. And how does, in a sense, his weakness show me how I can be weak and not shy away from putting myself out there despite my weaknesses. So both of them leaning towards God more than on themselves and just asking, am I willing? And then trusting that whatever they're going to encounter, I think there's a lot of trepidation. The priesthood is not easy for a priest or his family. These days, though, let's be honest, what is easy? Attorneys' wives don't have an easy life. Doctors' families don't have it easy. Lots of people are having difficult times. The priesthood has its particular difficulties. It shouldn't be minimized, but neither should be overemphasized. There are so many blessings to a priest and his family. I can say for my family, sure, there's been challenges for them, but they've had amazing opportunities because of my priesthood and the people we've met and the places we've served. And that has to all be factored in as well.
Single seminarians also have a unique set of maybe questions, challenges when they come here. For them, especially ones who aren't seeing anyone, there's also the possibility that maybe they will be a celibate priest. Um, what is your counsel to single men who are coming to seminary? How should they approach, in the midst of all of their studies, this question of, oh, am I going to meet someone? Am I going to find someone? I know that this is it's very stressful, I think, especially as they keep going. How do you process all of that? How do you keep it in its place?
Just like the married guys could stress about things that they shouldn't. They shouldn't stress, and I'll say it in a sort of blunt way, they shouldn't stress, is God going to take care of my family? That's not a good way of stressing, but a lot of them do. In the same vein, a single seminarian shouldn't stress, is God going to send me somebody? Am I going to find someone? Am I going to get married? We stress. It's one thing to be stressed in a good way, which is I'm being asked to do hard things and I've got to take them on, to finish all my assignments, to learn well, to be joyful to my brothers and sisters, to worship appropriately and be on time and do all my community assignments. That's a stress, and that's a good stress. Most of what we talk about, though, being stress, it's often, we could even take out the word stress and say worried, anxious. That's not necessarily helpful. It's common, it's normal, but it's not. It's something that we should be pushing against. In other words, if I'm a single student and I'm seeing these married guys, and I could think to myself, oh, they got it easy, they got wives already. What's going to happen with me? And when they say that to me, I say something like, it's not your business to decide when you think you're going to be ready to be ordained, and your job is to do what you're doing now. Do it as joyfully as you can. Take opportunities to be out meeting people. If there's a local young adult event at a local parish, do your homework ahead of time so you can go to that event and hang out. And if there's a conference where there's going to be a lot of people that are active in the church, make it so you can go be there. But if you go, and I've said this to these guys, if you go there stressed out, like I got to find a wife, sorry, you're going to scare off every single potential good person, right? Go as somebody who's living a whole life and they're there to just latch on and like leech from somebody, and then God takes care of the rest. We're funny people. We're very funny. We think we're the first people to deal with whatever particular situation, right? These married students there's no one that's ever gone through this before. I wonder if we're going to make it. They don't think, oh, in the past, like half of them made it, half of them didn't. Like most people, we get through it, right? These aren't the first single guys to wonder. Okay, wonder a little bit, but then get back to work. Be a good human being. Put yourself out a little bit and meet people and let God take care of the rest.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Father Michael, is there anything else you really want to communicate to people as they maybe consider coming to seminary, as they are praying for the seminary? What is the church and the school and you and all of us? What do we need? What do we want to say?
Yeah, we need prayers. This is a tough place to be. Just think about it as sort of a tactical area, If we were in a physical war, the opposing army tries to knock out headquarters and ammo depots and training centers. This is the training center for those that are going to lead the spiritual combat for the church, in the years to come. And so to be praying for the seminaries, to even financially support the seminaries. Um, it's not easy to run an institution that needs such a varied faculty for a relatively small student population. All right, it's one thing to have a college where you've got 2, 3, 10, 50,000 students, and to provide a faculty, that's hard enough. When you got a student body of 90 or 100, but you still need, between 9 and let's say 12 professors because of all the different subject matters need to be taught by people that are experts in their field. It's a tough thing. So to be praying for the seminary, supporting the seminary, for people that are considering or even just get an inkling of service, I think to learn about it. These days you can go on the website, you can take virtual tours, you can come and visit. We have an open house coming up in October to come and spend some time here, or just like I did in my young adult years, to come and make an excuse for a visit. I had a friend being ordained across the river, and I came here for a couple nights. And there's nothing like coming to see what it's like. I still remember, this is how old I am, that for the entire 2 nights I was here, there was never a time I woke up for a second that I didn't hear typewriters somewhere in the building. You don't hear that anymore, thankfully. As people just click on their little keypads and their keyboards. But yeah, to be supporting, and I think just to be open that maybe God is calling you, and if so, work on your trust that you'll be okay. Work on your trust in Him that He'll get you through. I think for me, that was the big lesson of my journey to coming here as a student, was I had all these kind of fears. I mean, I had so many fears layered on fears. And what I got to by the end of the process was, okay, it's okay to be afraid, but am I really thinking that God wants me to do this, that He's not going to provide for me a way through all those things I'm afraid of? And then it was just enough for me to say, well, let me give Him a chance to do that. And I came, and thank God I've been blessed ever since.
Thank you so much, Father Michael. I know we're all super excited to have you here, and just want to echo that to the folks who are watching this. Come check out the campus. Please do pray for everyone here, and God willing, I'm sure you'll be back on St. Vlad's media sooner rather than later. So we're all looking forward to that. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.